Oh, it's Pastor Jim Oliver, St. John's Community Church, Oakland, California. And today we're going to be focusing on how to better read for better understanding your Bible, okay? And so I just put a few notes down here I want to touch with you today. And this is for everyone. If you're a preacher, teacher, wanting to be one, or you want to call yourself apostle, potentate, or whatever title you may give it to yourself, you got to know this book, okay? I don't care how good you could hoop and how great you dance and how sweet you sing. You got to know the book because you're teaching and you're presenting things to people that are going to affect their lives, okay? And we need to stop some of the craziness and the unusual stuff because people are listening to you and they're not having any growth, they're not having any understanding, they're not having any clarity, they're not being blessed as though they're praying and doing everything else. So first off, whether you're, again, a preacher, teacher, whatever, you got to read this book, okay? You got to read and study. You got to study to show yourself approved unto God, a workman that need not be ashamed, and rightly divide the word of truth, okay? The truth is what's going to be that sets us free. The truth is going to eventually end racism. The truth is going to end wars and shortages and all these other crazy things that people are trying to do within this world. And the truth is going to help us control these devils that are around here trying to do things that they shouldn't be doing. It's all about truth, okay? So, again, we need to be more effective as ministers and preachers and teachers. And so, therefore, we got to have control of this book, okay? You got to read it and not just reading it casually, but you're going to have to get involved into it, okay? And some people just like to carry it around and get bigger Bibles and whatever. As you know, there's a lot of different versions of this Bible, probably about 40 or 50 different versions. And, read as many as you can, at least the most popular ones, okay? And read the book over and over from cover to cover. Read it many times. Now, don't worry about memorizing everything. That will come automatically, okay? You want to experience the Bible. Put yourself in it, okay? It is a book from your Creator who wants to give you this information, okay? God wants you to have this information. Man has obviously redacted and, reworded and changed the Bible. But as you continue to read and study, you'll get the real understanding. You'll get that spiritual knowledge and wisdom that you're seeking, okay? But you got to read this book. Again, it's my understanding, I hate to have to say, but as a pastor, and I would like to see most, if not all, pastors have a master's degree, okay? I went to UC Berkeley, and then I graduated from Pacific School of Religion, and I would encourage you to continue to study, especially if you're going to teach others, okay? Or if you're trying to tell people how they should live their life. That's the main thing. Then you should have some kind of degree, okay? Or some equivalent, just like you want a doctor who's been trained, or a lawyer who's been trained, or a judge that has some understanding, representatives and sociologists, psychiatrists that have prepared themselves to do the work. You need to prepare yourself to do the work. Okay, the emergent religion, if we want to even call it that, or philosophy, or whatever you want to call it, is going to have an integration of both science and spirituality. And of course, I used to like to say I'm no scientist, and then I become, a spiritual person. You got to be able to integrate these concepts, okay? We can't just go around with superstition and old wives' tales anymore and old wives' interpretations. We got to have the science implicit in our study. Social education from the society we live in is not a waste of time, okay? It's like reading the Bible. You want to give it your time, okay? And then the Bible will give that back to you, which you're seeking, okay? So why learn to read it? if you are not going to be a pastor or a minister, well, first off, that's the problem that we have right now in society. We have been in the last 2,000 years where people are relying on the ministers and the teachers to know the Bible and subsequently present that information to them. So people that are receiving the wrong information are going out here not living the best life they can be, not understanding what life is all about, and subsequently they go in the wrong direction, okay? The Bible is like a course of living 101, okay? And as you read, have a Webster's dictionary or the equivalent nearby, and have a good Bible dictionary, such as if you're using the NIV version of the Bible, get an NIV dictionary. If you're using the KJV, King James, get a King James version dictionary, or a New International, whatever. But also, whatever version you are reading, get a metaphysical dictionary. Now that right there is going to be something that's going to open up the doors, and the light's going to come on for a lot of ministers, just by understanding the metaphysical concept, what these names mean in the Bible, what these mountains mean in the Bible, what these trees mean in the Bible, the different types of trees I noted recently, as well as what the countries that are noted in the Bible. It's like saying that Egypt in the Bible is not the same Egypt that is there in Africa. Or you could even say that perhaps maybe the Israel that's noted in the Bible is not the same Israel that's over there. And we know some people are very sensitive when they hear things about Israel or children of Jacob or whatever. But again, you got to do the work. And it's kind of like the story it's not a story, but it's a fact how we hear about something that comes out and say, well, where did that come from? And so it's like the concept of Friday the 13th, when I think it was the Pope Clement or somebody and the King of France had sent the Crusaders over to Palestine to see if anybody knew about Jesus. Well, they sent them over there, and so they stayed there for a while. And, looking around, and they're asking the people, and nobody had heard anything about Jesus, okay? Nobody knew him or heard anything about him. And so subsequently, they came back, and, they told the Pope and the King, that, nobody knew anything about him, so they couldn't get any new information or anything like that. And it was as though he hadn't even existed. And so they said, well, we can't tell the people that. But obviously what they did get from their time there was they learned about sacred geometry. And of course, subsequently they were able to, as they said, start the banking system and build great cathedrals like Notre Dame and all those places, the Citadel, whatever. But they said, we can't tell the people that they didn't know, nobody knew anything about Jesus over there. So they said, well, that's blasphemy. And so obviously he says, well, we're going to have to, we can't have you go around speaking that, so we're going to have to kind of, eliminate you. And so, some of them ran, and of course that's explicit there in the Da Vinci Code movie. But I think it was Jacques Dumoulin or whoever his name was, do your own study, Google it if you have to. And they said, well, we're going to have to burn you to the stake. They're going to have to, kill you guys. We're going to have to accuse you of blasphemy. And that's where Friday the 13th came from. So again, it says, well, what's unlucky about Friday the 13th? Well, that was a very unlucky day for them. So, everything has a story. And so it's there in history, and the history is there, and there's a truth to it. So, you got to do the research to get it. You got to do the research to understand this Bible, because things were happening during those times, and they would refer to them, and those are the situations that emerge, and subsequently sometimes they have a specific title, and sometimes they won't, or they'll call it a war of this or the war of that, just like we have the War of 1812 or whatever. Well, what was it about? Or World War I, what was it about? You're going to have to do the research. It's just not explicit when they talk about it, okay? So you also want to learn about this planet that you're on. You want to learn about this Earth, the moon, the sun, the stars, and all the planets, okay? You want to learn about time. You gotta have these concepts working in the back of your mind because they're discussed in the Bible, okay? You want to know about weather, how it affects us, the seasons, the times. And Jesus said, you're supposed to know the signs, the times, and the seasons. You're supposed to be aware of this stuff, okay? And you're supposed to know a little about the heavens. You know, what does it mean to have something heaved up, and you know, where is heaven at, okay? And so you should learn about, you know, nature, and this is going to help you learn about yourself. You know, some people like to say, well, God wrote this book to us. Okay, yeah, true. This is God's love story to us. Okay, maybe true. But this is also God's description to you about who you are and how you should be, okay? And so it's all implicit in the book, but it's allegorized. It's detailed in a way in which you got to dig to get the information. You know, it's like panting for gold. It's not going to be always right there on the surface. You got to dig deep. And this is why we are often in a society where some people know something. There's the esoteric and that exoteric. You know, some people know something, but they're not sharing it with everybody else. You know, like the Egyptian priesthood, they knew something, but it wasn't time yet to tell the people. Well, the time is now where we're all supposed to know and grow and understand these things, because we're moving into the time of man. That man with that carrying the pitcher of water is about here. Okay, that time is coming where we got to all step up a notch. We can't have too many people running around ignorant anymore. Okay, it's time for us all to grow up and to know things. So, as someone would say, well, don't be stupid. As Paul says, I would not have you ignorant, my brothers and sisters. The Bible notes that to you specifically. This is your life. You're here for a purpose. You're here for a short time, okay? You must uncover the hidden meanings of what it is to live on this earth and what it's about. And therefore, you got to get the hidden meanings out of this ancient book as well as any others, okay? It will not take too long. It doesn't take too much time of your life. Once you begin to study right, okay, it'll come to you quickly. If you remember, as you're doing something wrong, you can always have wrong information. But if you do it right, you'll get it right, okay? So you don't have to read the Bible, incorrectly for 50 times, because then you're not going nowhere, okay? But if you read it correctly just a few times, cover to cover, then you're going to get it right. Okay, you'll be reading it correctly. So now you only need to read it once or twice correctly, okay? And then the lights will shine for you. You'll get that epiphany that you're waiting on, okay? So, as Paul says, I do not want you to be ignorant, my brothers and sisters. And then ignorant is not a bad word. Some people misunderstand that because, again, there's too much ignorance going on. Ignorance just means that you don't know. So somebody call you ignorant, don't jump on them, don't beat them up, Just say, okay, well, what do you mean by that, my brother? Or how can I, overcome this, okay? Study to show yourself approved unto God, a workman that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. That's what it's all about, okay? Grow up, okay? If you're doing things that ain't right, it's because, again, you just don't know better. You got to get it right, okay? You've been around here for a long time now. If you're an adult, you've been around a long time enough to know. So, again, study. So, again, the example. In this book, Egypt, which is mentioned more than any other country, okay? Most of the time, if not all the time, it's referring to the lower part of your body, or you could say even the lower part of your brain, okay? So it's not necessarily specifically referring to Egypt, because everybody is going to have to come out of Egypt sometime in their life. Everybody's going to want to get to that promised land, okay? And so it's a metaphor, okay? So what is Egypt to you? What is the promised land for you? What has God promised you? What is in your spirit? What has been on your mind? What is your dream, okay? And if you want to manifest that dream and make it reality, then you're going to have to move. You got to understand where you're trying to get to, okay? You got to set that goal, okay? So, again, remember, the country of Egypt did have great knowledge, okay? And so, Also, then the Greeks came in, and because they were seeking for knowledge, they were, going around the world conquering or whatever the case may be. Not like some other countries have conquered, but they were going around learning and sharing information. And so when they came to Egypt, as the facts are, they didn't stop in Palestine. There wasn't nothing there. So they goes into Egypt and they joined the Egyptian priesthood. Alexander the Great did. Socrates did. Plato did. All of these gentlemen. And so subsequently they go back to Egypt and they share it with their brothers and sisters so everyone can enhance their consciousness. And of course, then that's spread around the world. Okay, and even when people were trying to tell the Greeks, "Oh, you guys are so great. You got all this knowledge, wisdom, understanding." They said, "Well, yeah, we got it from Egypt. Okay, you could get it there too." So that's where everybody started going. And so now we have these Egyptologists, around the world. We don't have any Greektologists, but we have Egyptologists. Because people are doing research on Egypt, wondering how they had this information, where did it come from, how did they get it. And there were other groups that were great too, like the Babylonians and the Persians and the Phoenicians. Okay, but maybe Egypt lasted a long time or was there at the right time, okay? And, and so these were spoken of in a certain way, okay? And so when it comes to this book, people like to say Israel wrote this book. Well, maybe not quite. We know it's the Greeks wrote the book. And so why is Egypt or Israel in here, and they were the new kid on the block? Well, they put themselves in here, okay? They made it, anybody that's going to write about this information now is going to write it in their social location as they are to be understood within it. So they're in there, and they put their interpretation on there, okay? Because obviously, when the Egyptians were first laying this out, they weren't talking about the Israelites, okay? And so. And make you wonder. So, well, how does the Israelites fit in here anyway? Israel stands for Isis, I-S, Ra, R-A, Ra, the Egyptian sun god, and El, the god that they later refer to in the Bible. El this, El that, whatever. And so that's where Israel comes from. Okay, and Israel never was saying that they were the children of Isis. That was generally a Muslim concept or whatever, But we don't want to get all into that. That's religion. Okay. All right. So just study and get your best understanding of that. There's different sources. People, be careful what you read. Some people are going to be able to, there to mislead you. But understand what Israel means, okay? And maybe I'll get into that in a subsequent time, but, we want to get to some basics right now, okay? And so here's Egypt with this information and this knowledge and understanding. And so we know that later the Romans came in and they destroyed the library and the Alexandria and all that, the information that the Egyptians and the Greeks had pulled together. And they came into Egypt because there was obviously something that they wanted from the Egyptians, and they came in conquering. They needed gold and they needed wheat, to feed their soldiers, okay? And so, and then later, somehow, as with most people, Egypt was so great, they all flocked there, just like America is now great and everybody wants to come here. And that's the way it always been from time to time. When Europe was great, everybody wanted to go there. And once China becomes great, everybody's going to want to visit there, And that's just how people migrate, okay? And so there's some quote-unquote children of Jacob, let's say, they came into, as the Bible indicated, they came into Egypt seeking food, okay? Even though we know we don't live by bread alone, but, as the concept is. So they came into Egypt seeking not only food, but knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, okay? Rome and many other children from afar took the knowledge of Egypt and they twisted it, or not say we twisted it, they used it or redacted to their own personal preferences and such, so that they can make it work for them, so they can own it for themselves. So it's just like anything that's made. Some people are going to make a certain type of car, some people are going to make a certain type of boat, whatever's appropriate for the region and the area in which they live in. So the Greeks then used it to share the knowledge abroad. The Romans used it to build an empire. And these other groups, called the children of Jacob or whatever the other groups, well, that group particularly used it to form a society, in my opinion. And in 1956, it became a nation. Okay, now people, again, can interpret that, just to a broad stretch of time there. And I'm not anti anybody, so don't take offense. Get understanding. Get the truth of this, okay? And I've said this in a nice way, as nice as possible. As biblical and scientific studies allow, without bias or deception, but truth, okay? All religions come out of Egypt. Even the Hindus came out of Egypt, that which we like to call as the oldest religion around. And as you study, you'll say, well, yeah, it was the Egyptians that came out of Egypt and to India and gave them the religion, okay? Other than that, I don't know what they were doing before then, Hermes, who's actually the god of thought in Egypt. And the Greeks call him Hermes, but that's who he was. He was from Egypt. And out of Egypt have I brought my son. Okay, well, what does that mean? Okay, again, now we should have understanding on that. All religions come out of Egypt. Okay? Even the Mormons went there. Joseph Smith went there and stayed for a while to study the religions before he created Mormonism. Okay? So, again, if you don't have a basic foundation of what God presented to early man, then you might be off a little bit, okay? And so you want to be as close to the truth as possible. Even the Persians who were there and in and out and that were understanding the concepts, okay? They presented the concept of the devil in the Bible. And the sons of Jacob ran with that. That's where they got their concept from. Because someone or some group picked it up. And all these religions are picking up aspects along the way. And it should be to a circumstance where all these religions are going to eventually become one. Now, some people are talking about New World Order or one government or one religion. Well, it may not be a bad idea, particularly if the religions are everybody's going to be fighting. Even though it might be, we have to look at it as one race. It may be better than having us at each other's throat and a lot of racism and discrimination going on. So again, we are one human race, and we should have one understanding. We all got the same God, and if we're all going to the same heaven, then what are we fighting for? Okay, so the Bible is not fact. It depends on which one you're reading, But if you read, probably the living Bible would be that living world in which we're in. Again, if we can, get a proper interpretation of that. But this Bible is not fact, but there are facts in it. And you must study to rightly divide the word of truth. You're going to have to separate out that which is not truth, okay? And so you need that discernment, that spirit. Once you get that spirit in you from reading it a couple of times, the spirit is going to be in you to the degree that you're going to say, hey, this doesn't sound right. It doesn't resonate with my spirit, And because God has given that to you, because, too often, as they say, we look for things without, but it's already within. And God has already given you that spirit, okay? And it's just like that Christ spirit that comes into you through your solar plex, in your sun plex. And then you got to raise it up through the 33 vertebrae in your spine. You want to have a strong back, as they say. And then you got to bring it up to your cerebrum and your cerebellum. And, it's got to be heaved up into your head. Because this is where that heaven knowledge comes into. And this is like the head. This is where you meet God at, in your head. And so God is giving you that. You're just going to have to stir it up, wake it up, shake it up. It's like that which he's given you, because when you drop into the earth in the time of cancer, as I understand it, the research that I've done, as you drop into the earth, that which you've known is taken from you, and you're a baby and you grow back up. And you prepare yourself for moving on, and generally, we all go out and, as I say, quote unquote, the dead of winter through Capricorn. But as you come into this earth, which most of us, that which we have known in a prior life is taken away, okay? But for some of us, it's there. It's like always that residue. It's just like a computer. When you wipe out the memory, there's still a little bit of stuff there, okay? And so as you trigger those bits of information, it's gonna resonate. It's gonna show. It's gonna prove that this is. It's gonna validate it. Okay, and so there's a lot which is within us that we just don't know how to get out of us. Okay, and as we continue to live wrong and tell lies and try to deceive people and do things, we're further eroding our spirituality. So we got to live right, do right, and be right in order for the rightness to come out of us. It's already in there. And this is why we want to meditate more, because again, it's in us, okay? And so we just want to resonate with that which is in us, that truth. And we want to pray to God and that, that we're on the right track and that we're understanding it correctly, okay? And so sometimes you want to pray before you read, and you want to pray after you read. You want to stay in prayer. We always should be in prayer, as they say. Man should pray always. Which means it doesn't have to mean that you got to jump on your knees. You can pray while you're driving. You can pray while you're walking. And so just stay in prayer and keep those songs in your heart. Just live glorious, live wonderful. Know that God is walking and talking with you, because the Christ is within you. If Christ is within you, and people want to call Christ God, you know that God is within you. We're not only made in the image of God, which is our minds, but we're also made as children of God. And so it's in us. Our bodies are the temples of the living God. So if it's in us, there's something in there that we want to be able to get out. We are the ones that are moving and determining what's going on here. We are the ones that create the miracles. It's not Jesus. We can't be waiting on Jesus to come back and do things for us. He said greater things we should be doing, because we are here at this time and place. This is our time. This is our situation right now. We are to make this world a better place. And this is my prayer that we do it. Amen. Thank you for watching. And again, we'll be streaming live here at SJ Community Oakland. Amen. We want to create a new community of believers. If you like these understandings and new insights into the Bible, please hit the subscribe button, and so you can be alerted as to when the new episodes will be out, so you won't miss any parts of the Bible as we continue to walk through, for your understanding to make you a better person.